One of the things I get asked about most often is about statins. Are they helpful? Are they harmful? Should I be taking them or should I not be taking them? The answer is not that simple, and it's on a case-by-case basis. I believe that statins are not all bad, but they need to be used judiciously. Let's take a step back and look at what it is that cholesterol does for us, and why is it that the controversy has started to exist about statins. Well, cholesterol has many different roles in our system. We use it to make hormones. It's used for membrane fluidity. There are aspects of it that will go to our brain and feed our brain. And our brain does make its own cholesterol supply. It's used in immune function, and it's used as a method to communicate from one organ to another or from one cell to another. Adequate cholesterol levels will contribute to those compounds that deliver messages across the cell membrane and into the interior of the cell. When we have inflammatory cholesterol or when we have inadequate amounts of cholesterol, that membrane becomes less fluid, less stiff, and less able to conduct those messages. Now, that may seem bad on the surface, but those same systems that we use to communicate are systems that are hijacked by viruses, inflammatory compounds, as well as cancer. So when we look at some of the leading therapies that are involved in treating some of those conditions, sometimes statins are part of those treatments. And this is some of the reason why statins have shown multiple benefits in other organ systems and in other ways, because it blocks that transmission of compounds or systems or processes that want to hijack our cells and use the inflammation to cause problems. So how do statins block cholesterol production? They block a pathway called the mevalonate pathway, and this is a pathway that originates in our liver. It creates cholesterol in our liver and distributes it to the rest of our body. That cholesterol is in two forms. It can be bound by something or free, and what we often measure is what is bound. And so there's a whole host of different types of cholesterol that is free. That's often difficult to measure because it's more volatile, and that's what often contributes to membrane health and this signal transduction. It's also important to remember that our liver has a branch point in the pathway that makes cholesterol. And you can make cholesterol that is anti-inflammatory or actually pro-inflammatory. And when we look at the enzyme that statins block, HMG coenzyme A reductase, it can help divert more of that cholesterol that is being produced to the anti-inflammatory pathway. In addition, when we look at the direct effects of cholesterol on the lining of the arteries, that endothelium, it does a great job of promoting what's called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a very powerful anti-inflammatory compound. By inhibiting the cholesterol in the membrane and by reducing the inflammatory transmission of cytokines and other messengers, we actually reduce the consumption of something like nitric oxide and preserve its ability to maintain vascular flexibility, as well as to be used for other anti-inflammatory processes. We reduce the production of free radicals that may consume nitric oxide very readily, as opposed to reserving it for other uses. Now, that's not to say statins are great. They're just like every other medication. They have their issues. We've all heard of the side effects: muscle aches and pains, joint aches and pains, brain fog, sleep disturbances, in rare cases, liver enzyme elevation. Where does that stem from? It stems from one of the cellular issues that statins cause, which is mitochondrial dysfunction. It inhibits coenzyme Q10 production, which is one of the most important cofactors in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, and one of the most important cofactors that helps to make energy in our mitochondria. So when we use high doses of statins, we are more likely to get that effect of mitochondrial inhibition. Because we're blocking that mevalonate pathway, There's other compounds that are being made in that pathway. Coenzyme Q10 is one of those compounds. Vitamin D. We also get inhibition of certain magnesium using pathways. So there can be some magnesium utilization disruption. We can also see calcium disruption, which can cause calcium dysregulation and some of the effects of muscle aches and pains. So we have effects on both sides of the spectrum, positive and negative. And when you look at some studies that have tried to see in balance what is happening, the effect of the nitric oxide preservation seems to outweigh the inhibition of the mitochondrial system. So what we see is a net anti-inflammatory effect on the vascular system, on the immune system, and on inflammation production. Does that mean that everybody should be getting a high dose of a statin? No. In fact, when we look at using low doses of statins, we can often maintain some of the nitric oxide preservation, divert the cholesterol production down the more anti-inflammatory pathway, and keep from having significant amounts of mitochondrial dysfunction. So it's a much more complicated discussion. Because of this anti-inflammatory effect, statins continue to get looked at and studied for multiple other conditions outside of cholesterol management. It continues to get studied for COVID, for cancer, for autoimmune conditions, multiple other conditions that involve activation of the immune system and even conversion of cells to cancerous cells. So when somebody asks me if they should be on a statin or not, I always take it on a case-by-case basis. And when someone says, well, what about the mitochondrial issues? What about the membrane health? Those are a concern, and those are also the things that can sometimes work against us. So it's not as simple as lowering cholesterol is bad, having cholesterol high is good. We have to take it with more of a nuanced approach, and that's how I like to discuss it with my patients, as well as keep that in mind when I'm treating them. I hope you found this helpful and informative in the whole statin debate. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit like. If you want to hear more, hit subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.